I wrote down what I thought, what are the essential skills.
Mm-hmm.
But also what I did was that in Australia, we have the AMEB, which is the Australian Music Exam Board, and they had what they call contemporary popular music exams, CPMs. And so the idea was that you could go and do one of those exams on guitar, because most who do guitar don't want to do classical. So and that was the AMEB's role for most of the time, was just classical exams. So anyone who wanted to do anything outside of that, there was nothing available to them. But then the CPM exams came along, and they came along just at the right time. They came at about the time that I was developing the before G4, when I was sort of working on it, they first appeared. And so I thought, this is great, because the way that they'd done it is they had 4 levels, but they're all called advancing 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the first exam was not suitable for somebody who'd only been learning guitar for a year or less. There's no way that they could have done that exam unless they were practicing 3 or 4 hours a day. It was really meant for students who had been learning for a while, who'd finished, the first or second method books that were generally on the shelf. And so that's where I sort of looked at that and said, okay, what do we need to get the students to be able to pass that exam with flying colours? These are the skills they need. These are the 7 skills. These are the requirements. So I kind of worked my way backwards from there. I said, okay, how can I sort of build up to that? So I created a few levels. So I think there was 3 levels in the beginning. And so I had 3 levels, and there was no junior or senior. It was just simply 3 levels that would take them up to doing that first exam. So that's really where it started. But of course, there was also the fact that I'd been using a lot of other method books myself, Levitt and, I've been doing classical, jazz, rock. So I'd sort of covered the different method books in my own teaching, my own learning. So I'd kind of seen, but the other thing was that I ran a music school for all kinds of students. So I had piano teachers, I had violin teachers, woodwind teachers. We were doing a lot of school stuff. So I had Emma's, as you know Emma well. Emma does all the woodwind. She did the woodwind with me, and so there was a lot. She helped a lot in that area. And I noticed some differences with guitar students compared to other students who would to go through the levels. They would do really well on the exams. So I learned a lot from those teachers as well. So being exposed to lots of different teachers in different areas allowed me to sort of draw from those areas, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really interesting point. In fact, I think this ties in with a question that you had, Jimmy, about the grades.
Yeah.
Because we have a similar thing here for guitar. I think there are a couple of examples, Rock School and Trinity Rock and Pop. And that's often what people do. But, we found that the G4 method is a great primer for those. And often we have parents, because I think often parents don't know what the G4 method is, they've never heard of it, so sometimes it's difficult to kind of get that point across that we're not just going to put them in at grade 1 and they'll start there. So Jimmy, did you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I guess I don't know what generally the exams kind of consist of in Australia, but I feel like a lot of things learnt for some of the exams can often just be to tick boxes, and it's not really internalized. And I guess, like, what's your kind of take on it? For me, I like the G4 method because it actually gets students to remember things that they've done and kind of move forward with their playing. But I just wondered if you could kind of elaborate on like how you kind of feel the G4 method is kind of designed to like help students, and like why you would probably recommend it as opposed to just doing the grades, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. A lot of the exams were set up more like just checklists, and teachers would sort of, train their students up to be able to perform whatever was required on that checklist. So a lot of the exams or the Trinities and so forth, things have evolved a lot these days, but a lot of them, especially in the early stages, were not methods. They were just simply, this is the requirements.
Yeah.
And in Australia, that was how it was anyway. So yeah, you need to be able to do this, and this. We're not going to tell you how to do it or how much to practice or any of that. You're going to have to work that out with a teacher. So the thing that G4, the underlying thing is about developing behaviors. So developing how you should practice for the long term, because being a musician is not about just learning it and then switching off. It's a constant evolution. I think most musicians that you speak to, no matter how old they are, I even spoke to my teacher not that long ago, and he's been playing, he's in his late 60s, and he's been playing since he was a kid. He says, I'm still learning new things all the time. I'm still practicing the things that I need to do every day. So that never stops. So what we're really trying to do is say, this is how you should practice. And that's really what the G4 method is about, is developing students in how to practice. It's not just what to practice. We've got that because we want to make it easy for them, especially in the early stages. This is what you need to practice. But we also want to talk about how to practice and even why to practice. Why does it matter? So, if you take something like, the way to practice chords, we're teaching that in steps. We're saying, so if you look at a typical, when I started, you'd get a book of songs and it'd have the chords, but there was nothing telling you how to play the chords or how to practice them or how to get good at them. So there was no method behind it.
These are the chords you need to play these songs, but and it would just be like, oh, well, how do I put my feet? How do I do that? Obviously the G4 method addresses that.
Well, if I just add to that quickly is that I've also looked at anywhere where skills are used, motor skills such as sports, and it's the same kind of theory in just about everything. And that is that when you're developing motor skills, it's about doing repetitions. It's about doing, and tweaking it and turning it. And, there's a book called Practice Perfect, I think it's called. And he goes into a lot of the science in there. But, if you look at, say, for you guys in England, you look at football players that, when they practice the game, they don't just get on the field and kick the ball around during practice sessions. What they do is they do drills. They work on small drills where they'll kick a ball in a particular way, maybe thousands of times, just to get that kick right. They'll do other maneuvers, and they really drill down on it. And I often use the example of John Wooden in the US, the famous basketball coach, and how he used to coach his players without a basketball. He would get them to practice basketball without a basketball. And it's like pilots who learn in simulators. Some of them, most of the best pilots do more simulation than they do real flying. They're doing that extra time. So there's a lot of this, in skill development of drills and isolation. That's what you're trying to do, drills and isolation. I know they can get boring for kids, so we're sort of balancing that between what they should do and kind of what they want to do. It's kind of like when you should eat vegetables and you should eat healthy foods. None of this junk food. But hey, we can't just not give you junk food ever, because that's kind of in today's world, it's like being cruel. You gotta let them have a bit of fun.
My experience of teaching students who have always learned grades is they learn the tab, and it's like painting by numbers, and so they can read it and they can play it with no understanding, or very, very little understanding of actually why it is good and what makes it good. And after 2 years of doing the G4 method, the students actually getting a deep understanding of why things are and so then it's a brilliant tool for them being able to, because the workshop I did, just to give you an idea, was just with chords and then arpeggios, and picking out which note from the arpeggio we like for melodies. So it takes that kind of core skill, which if you just learn the grades and learn the tab, then you would have no idea about any of these things.